My friends, do I have a fun one for us to talk about today? Grab your pen and take some notes. Today we'll be talking about socialization and screen-based autism spectrum disorder. I've talked about the social influences that exist in our lives, but today I want to talk about the actual process of influence itself, socialization. After that, I want to go over another topic I've been giving thought to over this year, screen-based autism spectrum disorder, an idea intrinsically linked to socialization. The idea of screen-based ASD isn't one that originates from science or medicine. It's actually something I've picked up from Paulsego. He's talked about it on his channel as something he's observed through his interactions online. It interests me, so I've done some thinking and some research of my own to see what ideas the medical community has on the topic. I'll chuck a link to his channel in the description. He's pretty cool. Check it out sometime. In the meantime, you're watching Louis Vuitton. We'll talk about screen-based ASD in a moment, but first, socialization. So, socialization. Basically, the process of becoming who we are due to external and internal factors that shape who we are across the course of our lives. Nurture over nature. We're a product of our environment. The social forces at play in our life shape who we become. Family, country of birth, area we grew up in, wealth, education, gender, disability, race. There's nothing intrinsic to our identities that is inherent to our birth. I'd say 95 to 99% of who you are is a result of your upbringing. And this is backed up by sociology, anthropology, criminology, which was the whole point of the episode I did on thinking sociologically. Until you recognize these social factors influencing your life, you can't push back on them and start to think for yourself. Now, I want to talk about some real-world examples that demonstrate nurture over nature, just in case any of you had your doubts. I mean, you wouldn't just be arguing with me, you'd be arguing with a vast body of academic research. But anywho, it can be difficult to imagine the process of socialization. Plus, no one likes to imagine that they don't think for themselves. So, let's talk about an example of a lack of socialization. First up, the story of Anna the feral child. Born in the 1930s, Anna was the illegitimate child of the daughter of a farmer. Because she was a bastard, her grandfather made her mother keep Anna locked away and out of sight. Anna's mother kept Anna locked in a windowless room in the farmhouse for the first 5 years of her life. Anna spent a lot of that time tied down to keep her from moving about the room. The only contact, the only stimulus she had with the outside world was when her mother came up to feed her. At the age of 5, her abuse was reported and she was taken into state care. As a result of the years she had spent in isolation, Anna hadn't experienced the process of socialization that a child would go through during the most important formative years, from birth to age 4. When she was taken into care at age 5, Anna couldn't walk or talk, she couldn't cry, laugh, couldn't show happiness or anger. She had no concept of self, no identity. To be able to identify yourself, I am a girl, I like the color green, I like spicy food. You need to be able to base your statement relative to someone else. There's nothing about our identity that's intrinsic to our birth. Nurture over nature. That's socialization. She hadn't experienced the process and thus hadn't developed further than a 1-year-old. Less even. The contact she had with her mother was infrequent as she was routinely underfed. Her mother would also devote as little time as possible to the task, fearing her father's wrath if she was to show affection for her child. It was only once she was taken into care and exposed to social interaction did she start to develop communication, motor skills, and capacity for higher thought. By the time of her untimely death at age 10, she could feed herself, follow directions, and had the mental capacity comparable to a 3-year-old. Anna represents an extreme example of a person who has been deprived of social interaction during those formative years. This is to illustrate my point. When a person is deprived of social interaction during those formative years, they fail to develop not only an identity, but the base skills needed to function as a living organism. Let's talk about another example, Jeannie. Jeannie's story is a lot like Anna's. She too was kept locked in a room, tied to a chair. Her only interaction with another human was at the hands of an abusive parent. The sharp difference between the two is that Jeannie was kept locked away until she was 13. But like Anna, her skills in communication, social interaction, engagement, and thought process had been stunted. Another extreme example, but from a very different angle, is John Wayne Gacy. I know what you're thinking. What does John Wayne Gacy, notorious American serial killer, have in common with 2 abused children? In fact, barring the murders, he led a pretty standard life. I bring him up not as a comparison to Anna and Jeannie, but to demonstrate nurture over nature. While Gacy may have gone through socialization as a child, he was abused throughout his childhood by his father, which may explain the atrocities he committed later in life. Gacy agreed that after his execution, doctors could dissect his brain to determine if there were any abnormalities that could explain his actions. They found nothing. An entirely normal-looking brain, nothing where it shouldn't be. At least from a physical perspective, nothing to indicate that he was any different from you and I. Nurture over nature. So, that was socialization. These are arguments for identity being formed through communication, and that's the important part to keep in mind, communication. Without socialization, a person fails to develop the skills needed to communicate effectively, which now brings us to screen-based autism spectrum disorder. More and more communication is done digitally, this year especially so. Given the importance of socialization in a child's formative years, I wonder what implications there are for children interacting and communicating digitally. I know this sounds like a complete boomer argument. Children need to go outside, stop spending so much time playing video games, go ride a bike. The thing is though, there is so much of the process of social engagement that children miss out on through digital entertainment. Facial expression, body language, body posture, tone of voice, tone of conversation, hand language, eye movement, all of these factors of face-to-face communication are lost when communicating digitally. Now, I'm not advocating for children to not have electronic entertainment. I'm arguing against replacing social interactions with digital ones. I worry what effect digital entertainment will have on infants' socialization, hence the name, Screen Based ASD. The idea is that a child does not literally develop ASD, but their communication skills become stunted due to the lack of face-to-face communication during their early developmental years, leading to ASD-like symptoms later in life. So, what does science have to say on the topic? Well, studies show that the amount of time youth under the age of 4 spend on digital entertainment each day is increasing. One important thing to note is that the amount of time spent watching TV is going down, while the amount of time spent on handheld devices, like smartphones and tablets, is going up. It is important to distinguish between the two media. Television is considered passive engagement, while handheld devices are considered active. Your brain functions differently when engaging with a handheld device, and for children, it acts as a mental stimulant. This is why children of that age tend to crash after spending a lot of time on a handheld device. Amongst observed children under age 2, an average of 30 minutes is spent each day playing on a smartphone. This is going to be completely anecdotal, but I feel like the culture surrounding smartphones and tablets has changed in recent years. Tablets especially have become more accessible. 5 years ago, you didn't see kids with smartphones or tablets. It just wasn't a thing. The data seems to support this. Studies show that digital entertainment is being accessed by children from ever younger ages. Data also suggests the more time a child up to the age of 5 spends playing with digital entertainment, the likelihood of them falling short of developmental milestones increases. Learning difficulties, cognitive delays, lacking communication skill, poor academic performance. And here's the problem. In the last episode I talked about old world attitudes, and one of the areas I focused on was the internet. This is the problem with our academics. The majority of them are of an older generation. Like I said in the last step, unless you've grown up online, the internet may as well be a foreign land to you. In those formative years, 4 and below, I wonder, what will be the fallout of children spending more time interacting with digital media until our academics catch up and some of my generation start to study children's engagement with digital media and the internet? With so much of our communication being done online, I have to worry how well those kids will be able to communicate offline after they've grown up online. How well will they be able to integrate with offline environments where communication is a requirement, such as workplaces and schools? How comfortable are youth socializing via Twitter, Discord or Reddit? Are they more comfortable socializing online? How many of you freak out when your phone rings and angrily wonder, why can't they just text instead? I also worry about the possibility of people who have grown up online and had their communication skills stunted as a result, creating insular communities where lack of face-to-face social skills isn't an issue. Depending on the nature of these communities, this isn't an issue. But I worry about incel and MRA communities. These online communities are devoted to reinforcing members' bias. Combine the insular nature of these online communities with their members' potential lack of communication skills, leading them to feel ostracized in the offline world, it makes it harder to break these communities up. These are my thoughts behind this video. I'm wondering in the next few years how many youths will grow up online and develop screen-based ASD. Reference forthcoming. I'm very critical of men's communities, especially those found online. I want to dedicate part of my channel to deconstructing the unhealthy flavour of masculinity found in MGTOW or incel communities. But getting through to these guys won't be easy. They may be miserable right now, but at least they're miserable together. Let's put a stop to that. Let's get them offline, get them socializing, and ensure that in 10 years' time, screen-based ASD is not a recognized medical condition. I have some plans for a big project on men that I'm working on to help spread my ideas about men as they exist now and about how we can create a healthy masculinity. But that is a video for another time. My friends, thank you for watching. I do hope this video has given you something to think about, and I'd like to hear what you've got to say in the comments below. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and hitting the bell for notifications. I'm Lloyd Baton, and I'll see you all soon.